Hi, I'm Dan Lagani with Silver Solutions, the senior-focused home services company. Welcome to another episode of AgeWise. Our promise with every episode is to try to make you a little smarter about something you'll need to know as you and your loved ones grow older. Today, we definitely deliver on that promise, and we add something extra by talking about what may be the right next business chapter for many of you as well. We sat down with our guest a couple of months back. His name is Tim Evankovich, and he's the CEO of Oasis Senior Advisors. They're a senior placement company that operates in over 34 states and nearly 120 cities. And at their core, what they do is match families with the right assisted living, memory care, or independent living community. So whether you have a loved one that's looking for the right community setting, or you're looking for the next thing to do in your career, this conversation with Silver Solutions AgeWise is the right one for you. So sit back and enjoy our conversation with Tim Evankovich of Oasis Senior Advisors. Tim Evankovich of Oasis Senior Advisors, thanks so much for joining us today on AgeWise.
My pleasure. Good to be here, Dan.
So Tim, we've had shows in the past where we talked about what senior placement is, but let's still start with your definition of what Oasis Senior Advisors does and what senior placement is.
Sure. Happy to. So really, senior placement is helping a family and their senior through one of the most challenging and stressful periods in their life, of having to take a senior from their home and putting them into assisted living, which is very challenging. Again, very stressful. And so what we do is we work with that family, our advisors do, helping that family find the perfect living environment for that senior, whether it be assisted living, memory care, independent living sometimes. But really what we try to do is really hold the hand of that family and helping them through this challenging time, placing them into private pay assisted living and memory care.
So Oasis Senior Advisors is a franchisor. You have locations all across the country. How many different franchisees do you have today?
We're at 118 franchisees in 34 states currently.
Is there a formula that you have to determine whether someone is the right candidate to be a franchise owner? And if there is, what are a couple of things that you look for?
For Oasis, it's very straightforward. Three things that we look for predominantly. We look for the heart of a champion. That is that person that has that do whatever it takes mentality. They're going to put the hours in, do the work necessary to be successful. We look for a heart of a servant. I think that's kind of almost a given with what we do in the senior space of helping these families through this difficult and challenging time. And you know, the servant part is somebody that wants to give back, someone that wants to make a difference in people's lives, be part of the fabric of the community, so to speak. And typically these folks have pretty big hearts that go along with it, obviously. So, and then the third, really what we look for is just some general business acumen. And I don't mean like a business degree and plaque hanging on the wall or anything like that. More so, a person that can look at a situation, make a decision, and move forward, right? Always trying to move forward, never backward. That's kind of who we look for.
So you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, 118 locations around the country, 34 states, I believe you said. So there isn't a geographic skew, or is there? Are you heavier in certain parts of the country than others? And if so, does that mean states like Florida, Arizona, which had historically been retirement destinations?
Yeah, we are pretty strong in certain areas. We're strong in the mid-Atlantic, Maryland, Virginia, New Jersey, all the way up into New York. And then we're certainly strong in the Southeast and Florida. We've got about a dozen locations there in Florida. It's very strong in Arizona, very strong in the Midwest as well, believe it or not. Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, Chicago, Illinois. But what's interesting, Dan, you bring up a good point of, you know, intuitively you would think that, well, certainly the warm climates where everybody wants to retire to are our biggest and strongest franchises, right? Not necessarily the case. Our biggest franchisee is actually in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, of all places. Second largest is in Portland, Oregon. And then number 3 is Columbus, Ohio. We don't get to a warm climate until Austin, Texas, number 4 or 5.
For me, it raises a couple of different observations. And the first one is the market itself is just so large. There's a staggering figure I talked about on a recent episode, and that is by the end of this decade, a third of America will be over 65 or caregiving for someone that is. So, there's only so far you can go before you find an opportunity when it comes to the business of aging. But I guess the other thing that I also see in our business at Silver Solutions is there comes a certain age where even if you have moved to Florida or to Arizona or to a warmer climate, if you don't have extended family around you, we've done several jobs in the past year moving people back from Florida to the New York area. So there's this reverse migration that happens. And I wonder if on some level that happens in some of the markets that you're in as well, where there are people that are looking for communities that are back where the family is, even if they had been seasonally away.
No question. We see that quite frequently where, the seniors, in their 60s, early 70s move to Florida or Arizona, where have you, and health issues preclude them from being able to take care of themselves and be safe and secure. So assisted living is the way to go, but they have nobody down here in Florida or Arizona, wherever, to help with that transition, help with that move. And so they do commonly move them back to closer to family so that they can be visited, they can see them more frequently at the latter stages of their life. And I think it's interesting sometimes that, when we see seniors being moved into assisted living, more commonly, as we just talked about, they're moving closer to relatives, closer to family. And then there's that rare occasion where they're moving further away from family because they've just had enough. So we see both sides.
For people that are considering franchise ownership as the next career, and I say it that way because, at least from the outside, it seems like it isn't the first business stop for most successful franchisees. It seems to be where they evolve into. What are the questions that they should be asking if they're looking at Oasis or any other viable company of that franchisor? What are the things that are an indication that they're about to enter into good company?
Yeah. So I think the first thing they need to do is look inside, right? If they're at least interested in small business ownership, they already have a little of that entrepreneurialism kind of seething out of them a little bit, right? Wanting to do something on their own, wanting to be independent, wanting that lifestyle luxury, so to speak. So that's part of it. But the other part is, I think they really need to ask themselves, am I willing to follow the model, right? People get into franchising for a couple of reasons. One of the main ones is there's safety in numbers, right? They look at our continuum of franchisees and they see a multitude of successful franchisees that have built successful businesses and are thrilled with what they do, right? So from that perspective, there's a comfort level for them to say, okay, if they can do it, maybe I can do it as well. And that's why I say it's important for them to look within to say, am I willing to follow the model? Am I willing to put the work in necessary to be successful? I've seen so many times where people get into small business ownership, whether it be Oasis or the cleaning authority or anything, and say, okay, bought a franchise, make me wealthy. I promise you it does not work that way. If it does, I want to know what model that is, and I want in. But it does not exist. So these people have to be willing to do the work to build it. Nothing worth anything is going to be easy to come by. You got to put the effort in.
So, Tim, just without giving away any of the real sort of financial secrets, but what's the basic financial framework for a franchisee? And how do they make money, providing that they're doing the right things? They're developing their customer base, they're providing the kind of service and following the system that you put in place. What do the economics look like for most people?
Yeah, total investment to get into Oasis is anywhere from about $70K to about $100K based on territory size, because it fluctuates the franchise fee based on that. And that's all in. So anything under 100K is considered a low cost franchise opportunity, believe it or not. I know for most of us, 100,000 doesn't sound like a low cost. It doesn't to me, but that's how they clarify it. And then, really to build the business, I talk about following the model, but that's a piece of it. But really it's having that personality right? That is willing to meet people, willing to get into the community, willing to network, feel empowered by, just the more people you meet, the bigger your expanse of potential lead flow becomes. Working with hospitals, working with skilled nursing facilities, working with those in the geriatric community that really are that last line of defense to say this senior should not be living by themselves. It's not safe, not secure. Again, that's where we come in. So working with those folks to do that. And you just have to get out of your house. We have a rule that we preach during training: out before 9, in after 5. If you're home sitting at your computer until 11 or 12 every day, I promise you will not be successful. It just doesn't work that way. It's out, it's boots on the ground, getting in front of those lead sources, working with your communities, helping the advisors understand what they provide, level of care, cost, everything to do that. Unfortunately, we have a wonderful proprietary software, Oasis IQ, that helps our franchisees manage every aspect of their business.
I mentioned a little bit earlier, the demographic trends are certainly in favor of the business that you're in. We're going to see significant growth as, especially the original baby boomers that turned 65 back in around 2010-11 will start to get closer to 80 by the end of this decade. And the question then is, what does your business look like as a result of that in a couple of years?
Well, let me see. How many adjectives can I use to describe that? Massive, huge. Yeah, you made a great point, Dan, that the baby boomers, just hit 70 a few years ago. That gives us a big 20 to 25 year expanse of the largest populace in our nation's history, right? We're all going to get old. I turn 60 next year. Not quite ready for assisted living, although my wife would like to put me into memory care, I'm sure. But the mountain is the pinnacle of the mountain, so to speak, is just so huge. The business out there is we can't contain it all. Is how big it's going to get. The challenge is going to be finding the personnel in the communities and stuff to take care of those seniors. Right, that's going to be our biggest challenge without question. But the business is just going to rock and roll because the families need us, and we're a free service. We don't cost a family a dime to help them through this process. It's a very straightforward business. We're compensated by the assisted living community or memory care community that we place that will pay us a referral fee for bringing them that senior. That's
certainly a nice piece to have in place that I'm sure reduces any obstacle to sale, if you will, up front. Tim, what do you do for fun it sounds like the limited free time that you may have with Oasis Senior Advisors continuing to expand at the rate that it is? What's downtime or a weekend look like for you?
You're absolutely right. What little I have, I do play quite a bit of tennis and love to get out there 2 or 3 times a week to do that. My wife and I love to cook. We love to travel. And I'm also a big wine guy. I'm big, but I also love wine. So I call myself a cork dork. Love to collect some wine. Love to drink wine with friends. That's what, to me, wine is all about. Sharing with good friends and enjoying life.
So Tim Evankovich of Oasis Senior Advisors, thanks so much for joining us today. It was a slightly different version of AgeWise. Normally we talk from the consumer's perspective, but today we wanted to take a look at the business of aging as this market just continues to explode. With that in mind, leave us with 1 or 2 things that anybody that you think may be a viable franchisee candidate for Oasis should be thinking about as they consider their next move.
Yeah, if somebody's looking for more flexibility in their life and really wants to do something that they absolutely love, when you wake up every day and can't wait to go to work, this may be a great opportunity for you.
Well, thanks again, Tim. Enjoyed the conversation. And for all of us here at AgeWise, who work hard every day through Silver Solutions to make your lives a little bit better for you and your aging loved ones, if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. And if you want to get every episode as they become available, just go to anywhere that you get your Apple Podcasts and press subscribe, and it'll be in your inbox as soon as it gets released. I'm Dan Lagani of Silver Solutions. Thanks again, and stay safe and be wise.